Hey everyone, it's Scott from certmedia.com, and today I'm going to be discussing SecuPress Free. I'm going to go over the plugin, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So SecuPress Free is a free WordPress security plugin. Think of it as something kind of like a WordFence, or it's kind of like a nice mixture of WordFence and Ithemes. Its development, though, has been a little spotty, but we'll get to that towards the end. So to install it, you're going to go to Add New, and you can type in something as basic as security, or you can just type in SecuPress and go ahead and install and activate it. Once you've done that, you're going to get redirected back to your own page. You're going to get a nice big icon that lets you know that it's been installed and it wants you to improve the security. It mentions that what's new in the latest version, so they have a do not allow user creation feature, blacklisting an IP address, and some other fixes that were added. So under SecuPress, you'll click the main button and that'll take you to its home page once it decides to open up, and it wants you to create your first scan. And the reason for this is it's a security report. It basically just checks to see what features you have enabled and what you're actually protected against. So it gave my site a D. This is a staging site that I just set up and I clear as is, and we're going to see what it's saying I need to fix. So it says good, because my admin account is correctly protected, and then it gives you a learn more option, which will open up and tell you. So it wants you to not use admin as the username for the account. That's good. Your subscription settings are set correctly. The default user role is set to subscriber instead of anything higher. The database password seems strong, so all the usernames are correct. It says though that my login system is not strong enough and wants to set up a double authentication system or two-factor authentication. And then it says login errors should not be displayed. This would be useful for, let's say you guess a username. Let's say somebody's trying to guess your login. If they put in their correct email or the correct username, WordPress will say, well, that password does not match this username or email. So that way they know that the username they're guessing is already correct and in use. This is a suggestion to disable that, which I think is a really good suggestion. Plugins and themes. My themes and plugins are up to date, and I'm not using any old plugins, and none of them appear to be vulnerable. I am getting docked though, because it says it cannot update itself. I would enable that on a normal site, but this is one, managed by me, and two, it's a staging. I like how it gives me my letter grade up there as well. The PHP constant cookie hash is defined with the default value. It should be modified. Interesting. And then the following security keys are not set correctly. They're hard-coded. It provides 8 security keys. Each has a unique purpose. The keys must be set with long random strings. Do not keep the default value. Interesting suggestion. It wants the WordPress version to be removed and the README file should not be accessible. That's also a good suggestion. And again, it's the same suggestion here, but with also changelog.txt. Malware scan, whether or not your files are using bad extensions, those files are already directly accessible. So this is basically to prevent like PHP files from executing in your uploads folder. Your website should block requests from bad user agents, obviously. It should block an SQL injection, again, obviously. Your website is not protected from multiple and quick requests. That's fine. Your website should track an options method, and that's fine. And then these files are apparently accessible. Those are issues. So after you go through this nice little report, it's going to want to go to the next step. You can also export it as a PDF in the Pro version. That's kind of a gimmicky feature. If this was an off-site scanner, or maybe I was tying it into some kind of report system already, then this would be more useful. But I don't see a good reason for me to use this, even in the Pro version. So we click Next. And these features that are in the Pro, all the protection features are blocked unless you use the Pro version. That's fairly annoying. I'm basically getting a glorified scanner at first, and then the Pro version, where it goes through and actually fixes the issues, is where everything is. This is basically kind of pointless. And then it says that I can fix the issue right here by go ahead and ignoring it, or get the Pro version to fix it. So that's fairly obnoxious. We're going to ignore it. You can check if your WordPress lists some login errors. We can fix this for free. That's nice. And let's see, activate the minor updates in the WordPress core module. Sure, we'll go ahead and allow that. Get some PHP constants in your WP config file. We'll go ahead and update that. How to fix it. Create a must-use plugin to replace your actual keys stored in WP config. Sure. How to fix. We're going to go ahead and just click fix basically everything. This cannot be fixed unless I buy the Pro version. That would make sense. That's a firewall-based feature. Okay. And cool, now I'm at a B. So that's good. It's nice that it went through and showed me what options can be fixed for free, and it was fairly straightforward. It even explained them, but I didn't need the explanation because I already ran through them initially. The one thing that I don't like is that the process is so linear that when you get met with the first recommendation that you have to pay to use it, it's kind of like, well, what's the point of downloading the plugin if your first suggestion is telling me I need to pay? It already gives the impression that the plugin is only going to be useful if you pay for it. So I get an almost perfect grade of B, and with the remaining recommendations being, let's see, I would need to go further to pay for their Pro version to get anti-spam features, their firewall, which I'm assuming is very decent, and the logs. So we can assume that it's doing more or less its job. Under the modules feature, we can now go ahead and look at some of the deeper settings. To get the license validation, you need to put your license key in as well as your email address. When you do this, you get to the user and login screen. So you can move the login and admin pages. This is a very good functionality, but it's also very annoying if you forget it. What you'll do is you'll basically just give a different sign-in URL. It'll dynamically change it to whatever you wish. You can do /login. I wouldn't recommend that. I would just do /backend or even the name of like staging 2 as the sub URL, something that you can remember but is not easily identifiable as a login URL that somebody will guess. And then you can just choose to use the standard error message. I'm not going to do that on this site because I don't need to on a staging site. Use an attempt blocker. You can temporarily ban bots who try to mess with the login page. That's good. This is basically just brute force protection. You set it up manually. And then this default is fine. I would automatically ban login attempts using non-existing usernames. And then hide the usual login errors should also be checked. You can also enable a CAPTCHA for everybody. So if you enable this, it will enable a CAPTCHA form. And if it's not submitted, then the form will not be allowed to submit the login details. That's another good option. For password policy, you can ask for old password if a user changes it. That's fine. You can force strong passwords in the lifespan with the Pro version. Forbid usernames that are blacklisted, this is a good one. You don't want anybody setting their username as admin or login or admin123, common things that people are going to use. This feature is also found in some of the other plugins. What it does is it prevents the bots from trying to find your username by looking for the author URL. This is a good feature to have. Plugins and themes. I'm not going to bother saving it. So you can disable the uploads and themes of plugins. This would completely disable allowing them. This can be useful if your site is already built. But I will admit, I don't see zip files as normally the main means of infection. Normally what happens is there's some sort of vulnerability. They upload a PHP file, which gives them access either to PHP or the ability to upload additional files. So I wouldn't say this is not useful. I would just say that it's not gonna majorly improve the website. So if you're working on the website, I would not recommend enabling this option. You can also disable the installation of all new plugins. Again, unless you have a reason to and your site's not getting modified or you're completely done doing work on it, then there's no reason to enable this option. And then you can do the same thing for themes. For WordPress core tweaking, minor updates that will force a WordPress to allow minor updates. So these are security releases that WordPress automatically releases and then automatically updates in the background. These normally don't ever have any breaking changes in them, so it's always good to get them installed as fast as possible. Major updates would allow you to force the major feature releases, so 4.4, 5.4, anything that ends in a major decimal. So This I would not recommend doing because you'd want to make sure you're taking proper backups. You want to have a good backup solution in place, either from a third party or you're manually backing them up and making sure they're being stored off-site. That way you have a means of recovery in case a major WordPress update does break things, and trust me, that does happen a lot. WordPress configuration, the file edition will just allow you to enable or disable the plugin editor and the appearance editor. It looks like that's already disabled on this install. So whether I check it or not doesn't matter. Unfiltered uploads will allow the administrators to upload any file type. What this will do is it will just remove that preset. Well, it's not preset, but it will remove that constant. That's a good option to have if you ever uploaded SVGs, for instance. You may have tried to go ahead and allow unfiltered uploads. You're not going to want to leave it that way. That's a very common means of infection for somebody uploading PHP files through the media library, if they have access. Sensitive data, if you're not using Jetpack or the WordPress mobile app, disable XML RPC completely. If you are using it, then disable the multiple authentication attempts. But since this is a staging site, I can just disable it completely. Black hole. Black hole is as it mentions, a forbidden folder, and it is disallowed. If a bot does not respect this rule, its IP address will be banned. So what's a common tactic is bots will view the robots.txt file and see if there's a URL or folder that's given. So if the bot scans it and then it attempts to go to the black hole folder that SecuPress creates and the bot goes to it, they'll automatically block the IP address. It's kind of like a honeypot, but a different means of a honeypot. So this is actually a really smart and useful feature. It's quite interesting as well. I don't know how effective it is, but in principle, it's very useful. Anti-hotlink is only in the pro version. Directory listing. If you are in Apache and you, for some reason, your host is just not very good at maintaining it, or you set the server up and you're not very good at maintaining it, if you have Apache indexes enabled, it will allow directory listing. So what will happen is if somebody goes onto your website, they could in theory go to wp-content, and if it opens up, which is just a folder in itself, so if it was staging2.certmedia.com/wp-content, what will happen? I'll actually show you. If your server is not set up correctly, they'll get a list of folders right here. Mine is disabled and there's no content being listed. That is the recommended way you want to do this. If you think that that's happening or you verified that that's happening, you would want to check this option. PHP disclosure. So PHP does display some information about installed modules, and it can be insecure. Most hosts disable it by default, and if that's not the case, then you'll want to go ahead and enable it. There's no real threat in enabling it in the first place, even if you're not sure. So go ahead and check the box if you're unsure as well. PHP version disclosure will, some servers will send what version of PHP is being used. I see this all the time on GoDaddy, particularly. GoDaddy will transfer what version of PHP is being sent. I would recommend checking this option. Because if you're running an older version or an unsupported version of PHP, like 5.6 for instance, you don't want bots to easily figure out that that's the version you're running, because then they'll know what exploits to try. WordPress version disclosure should be checked. You don't need to show your WordPress version. Bad URL access should also be blocked. And then protect the README files to prevent them from seeing what your WordPress version is. Under the firewall, you get the option to block bad user agents, block bad requests, and then block fake SEO bots should be checked. So these are just fake Google bots. It's another plugins as well, but it's a very good option to have. Block SQLI scan injections, scan attempts. I would recommend this. And then block 404 request on PHP files. So if somebody is trying to basically find a hidden file, they should get a 404 page and then block them. So what this means is sometimes hackers will attempt to see if somebody else, or maybe it's just a random bot. So a bot's out on the internet and is trying to see if you were vulnerable or had already been hacked. It'll try to find a common PHP file that either it uploads or somebody else uploads, because many times everybody's using the same bots, using the same known vulnerabilities, and then it will try to exploit that PHP file that's already been uploaded. So what will happen is if you removed that file, or the file doesn't exist, this will automatically blacklist that bot, which is smart because it knows that that bot is trying to find a malicious file on your website when no normal person would be able to find that file. You'd have to already know about it to attempt to find it. So while they may just get a normal 404, it's better to block them outright so that way they stop trying to find potentially hacked files. Under the anti-spam features, you can check to say that while you need comments on your site, you can fight comment spam. So it'll just try to block common spam keywords. And as you see, so you can choose how spam is being handled. You can send it to your trash, or you can mark it as spam. I recommend marking it as spam and then manually deleting it, as you notice. The shortcode usage will mark any comment as spam if they try to insert a shortcode. And then it improves a WordPress comments blacklist and adds more than 20,000 words. This is actually found on GitHub. It's around 30,000 words now, I believe. It's quite effective at stopping a large amount of spam. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And then you should also stop pingbacks and trackbacks. That should be the first thing you do on any site, is turn them off. They're just a major spam source. You'll ping back yourself all the time. It's just a headache that you don't need. And you save the option. Under logs and IPs, you can blacklist IPs, whitelist them, and you can also log WordPress actions as well as log WordPress 404s. This is just a diagnostics tool. If you believe you're being hacked or you're wanting to blacklist an IP address, then you can go here and do so. Now, the remaining features, the file scanner, the backups, the alerts, and the schedules are all paid features. So there's actually a lot more free features in the plugin than it leads on. Personally, I would just not run the initial scan and just jump straight to the module's configuration. But either way, there's a lot of decent functionality. And I could, of course, run the scanner again, even though I don't think I saved any of the changes that I made. But had I done that, then my score would realistically go up. So overall, the breadth and the coverage of it is very strong. How does it compare to other security plugins is going to be up to you. I would say that this is more in line with Ithemes security in the sense that it basically does some good HT access trickery and some good PHP modifications to block bots, but it doesn't have the kind of scam that I expect that WordFence comes with, which really is what sets WordFence above and beyond everybody else, is they have the best malware scanner of any plugin on the market. Their user interface is also very good, and they don't give you some kind of security scan to grade your website. Now, WordFence does have a little indicator of what they grade your website as, is like a 35, and then it goes to 55 if you optimize the firewall, but more or less, they're both good. If I had to pick, on most websites, you could probably do just fine with SecuPress. Totally would be fine. You could completely use this and you wouldn't expect any problems. I would say that WordFence, though, is the more complete plugin. If you have a question or I missed anything about this plugin, feel free to ask in the comments below. If you have any thoughts, and maybe if you have thoughts about the plugin itself or you want to cover your own experiences, also comment in the comments section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.